Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast for the review show of round 7. To think we are almost going into round 8 now is absolutely unbelievable. What a fantastic round that was. I got 6 out of 8 in the tip-in, which I'll take any day of the week, as I say, when I get 6 or over out of 8. Yeah, I mean, I'll take it with how unpredictable the game is at the moment, but I can guarantee you it certainly hasn't been 6 out of 8 most weeks of the competition. But in saying that, it's nice when you win, isn't it? It's a good feeling, especially in this unpredictable, amazing game that we follow called Rugby League. All right, let's start on the Thursday night game between the Cowboys and the Manly Sea Eagles. Manly winning that game 38 points to 6 over the Cowboys. Now, I was pretty worried about this game earlier in the week. So this time last week, I was quite worried. And then I found out that Reid Marnie was out, and it gave me a little bit more confidence about this game. I think Reid Marnie last week was an absolutely huge loss. And it ended up been a massive loss for them. Just the lack of creativity at dummy half, especially in attack near the try line. They just lacked that spark in attack. And the way in which Reid Marnie is able to engage his forwards onto the football and get his forwards going and bring the energy and the enthusiasm into the side when they need it at certain points in the game. They really lost not just his leadership, his experience, but his energy and enthusiasm. They looked pretty flat energy-wise. In fact, I would go as far as to say it was probably their worst performance of the season, possibly one of their worst performances we've seen over the last 2 years, to be completely honest with you. How they can go from 4 wins in a row to how they were playing to losing to Manly by 32 points. I don't get it. I mean, you still look at the squad they had. Ruben Cotter, Scott Drinkwater was off. For me, with Scott Drinkwater, I think that the chat about him leaving the club has probably got to him. I think he's come out and said that he wants to spend the rest of his career at the Cowboys, but they obviously are happy for him to move on. So that must hurt him, and he must have just lost a lot of confidence in that. I think he'll be back, but it was a poor performance from Scott Drinkwater, and I reckon he'd admit it himself. He was very quiet. But in saying that, it must hurt a player in the NRL that loves the club, wants to be there for the rest of their career, and then to unexpectedly get tapped on the shoulder and say, "Hey, look, you're happy to look elsewhere." It's not the club's fault. They're doing what they think's right for the future. But in saying that, it must hurt somebody that really loves the club. And I think it showed in the performance of the Cowboys that it didn't just affect Scott Drinkwater, it affected the side. Shout out to Jason Taumalolo. I thought he did a really good job still, considering the loss. I thought he played strong. I thought he's been probably their best player in the opening 7 weeks. I thought Jackson Purdue was quiet. I thought Manly kept him really quiet. Just wasn't the Cowboys' night. But, how often do we see this over the last few years? I'd say since 2023 when Todd Payton. I always get those names confused. Todd Payton got to the prelim 2022, 2023. They miss out on finals. 2024, they get to week 2 of the finals. 25, they have a shocking year. 26, well, history would say that it's every second year they'll make the finals. But since 2023 onwards, we see, I always think, Todd Greenberg's under pressure, and then they'll win 3 or 4 games in a row and then put in a performance like this. And I'm really concerned it's just with the Cowboys. It's just one of those things that, they just can't continue to go on that run. And for some reason, I don't know why. If you're a Cowboys fan, leave it in the comments or on Spotify or YouTube of what your opinion, or the podcast app, the Apple Podcasts app as well. Leave a comment. I just can't understand what it is with the Cowboys where they just, for me, you look at that squad, they have a top 4 roster every day of the week. Like, it is phenomenal how good. Like Murray Talangi, Australian, he's been a former Australian Kangaroo on the wing, played for Queensland. He's a tremendous winger. He's absolutely fantastic. Scott Drinkwater, look, for me, he's not one of the elite fullbacks, but he's still a bloody good fullback without a doubt. Tom Dearden, like, how many clubs would want a young 25, 26-year-old halfback as good as Tom Dearden, and he's not even into the prime years of a half. Imagine Tom Dearden in 3, 4, 5 years from now. He'll be absolutely dominating as he is now. Like, his game will go to another level, which is scary. Ruben Cotter, one of the best, forwards in the game, a kangaroo, a Queenslander. Like Jeremiah Nanai's coming back in. Hillam Lukey's been unbelievable. I just don't think that the Cowboys have excuses not to make. They have no excuses not to make finals this year. I think if the Cowboys do not make the finals, then Todd Payten will leave in the off-season. That's my opinion. And honestly, I think the expectation will be for the Cowboys, for Todd Payten to keep his job, to at least make week 2, week 3 of the finals. It might sound harsh, but at the end of the day, Todd Payten's been there now since 2021. I just feel that with this roster, they should be at least a consistent top 8 team. And sure, they won 4 games in a row, but in the big scheme of things, at the end of the day, this game was only in round 7. So, disappointing signs there from the Cowboys. I would have liked to see them do better than that. Obviously, who I support, but I just, as a rugby league fan, like, if I take my Manly hat off for a second, I genuinely expected a bit more from the Cowboys. I thought if Manly were to win, it would be a really tight game. I didn't expect Manly to win as big as they did. Now, for me, let's talk about Manly. Were Manly brilliant? No, I wouldn't say they were brilliant. I thought they made a few errors. But what really impressed me about Manly, sure, 38 points is 38 points, and I'll take that any day of the week as a Manly fan. But, what's really been disappointing about Manly over the last sort of 4, 5, 6 years at times is how poor we've been in defence. Like, it just doesn't, it's just not that Manly DNA, that Manly mental toughness of, playing for each other, trusting your teammate, that goal line defence. I always talk about, growing up, going to Brookie Oval every second Sunday afternoon and watching the likes of Watmo, Brent Kite, Matt Ballin, all these Manly legends. You knew exactly what you were going to get. And if you were going to lose the game, as a Manly fan, you always left Brookie Oval. From probably 2006 onwards, you left proud of the performance, and you knew that there was some sense of that there was a rebuild happening. And then from 2008 onwards, there was, consistency, a lot of consistency in winning games and winning the tough games and being a mentally tough side. And that was based on our defence. I mean, we had such a good football team back in those mid 2000s to early 2010s. But what I loved about Manly back then was how good their defence was. You only have to look at the 2008 grand final. They still, sure, Cameron Smith didn't play in that game, but, that Melbourne team was still, without Cameron Smith, over the salary cap. Like they technically were, so Manly still had to defend the likes of Inglis and Cronk and Folau and Crocker and, White, and it just kept going on. Steve Turner, Matt Geyer, like, they had such attacking brilliance all over the park, but Manly held them on. And, I feel like this game was really impressive. This game for Manly in defence, they showed a lot of, they had a bit of that Manly DNA back. I spoke earlier in the year about this in this podcast about how Manly, the club, have lost their DNA. The players don't look like they're playing like a Manly player anymore, if that makes sense. So as Foz has come back in, he's really brought back in that belief that they need to have within the group. And I'll just touch on Tom Trbojevic quickly before I get on to the next game. For me personally, as much as I hate to say it, I think his fullback days are now, it needs to be done. It just needs to be done. I think this season in 2026 is a real turning point into the future of Manly. So Kieran Foran, in my opinion, will be the head coach long-term of this club. And I think that Tolu Kola will now be the long-term fullback at Manly. And we've been very blessed over the years at Manly. We had Brett Stewart from 2003 to 2016. Turbo debuted in 2015, played the first 2 years of his career on the wing, and then from 2017 onwards, consistently started playing fullback. I just think at the end of the day, that's his 8th hamstring injury. I saw a stat the other day since 2015 when he made his debut against the Canberra Raiders in round 5, I think it was 2015. He has played only, he's missed out on 38% of games. So, yeah. So, to think that he's only played 62% of games since he made his debut is really, I feel bad for him. If I feel bad for anyone, it's Tom Trbojevic. I mean, you're looking at this bloke as just a champion bloke, but an amazing footballer. But unfortunately, I think now that is it. I understand last year that he was a bit upset that he got moved from fullback to centre, but now I think what's best for the club is for him to genuinely move into the centres. And become that roaming centre. And if he wants to keep playing in the NRL, that may be his only choice. I think you need to minimise the amount of running. I saw something earlier in the year saying that a fullback in the NRL runs anywhere between 12 kilometres to 15 kilometres. And the centres can run it anywhere from 7 to 9 kilometres. So if we can just limit the amount of Ks he's doing in his legs per game, and it's not just what they do in attack of fullback. Just watch the defensive line of fullback and the defensive line when a team is 20 metres out. Or, I mean, for example, we saw it the other night with Adam Reynolds against the Tigers, like how he just realised that Buller wasn't in position, neither was Makasini, and you see Buller from the other side of the field just sprint over as Dean Mariner catches the ball. It's not just what fullbacks can do in attack, it's the way in which they have to change direction quickly and absolutely fly on the run. I just don't think Tom Trbojevic's body can do it anymore. I wish Tom all the best, but as a Manly fan, it breaks my heart to say this, but it's either, for me, I think he needs to go into the centres or 100% seriously consider retiring from rugby league. There's no doubt that Foz will take him up as an assistant or as some sort of mentor or coach at Manly moving forward. But at the end of the day, he's been one of the club's best players since 1947, without a doubt. But I'm thinking now of the future of the club. And I genuinely believe that he needs to move to centre and be happy with it, or seriously consider possibly moving to the Super League or retiring. I understand he has an ambition to move to the Super League. Manly recently just re-signed him to the end of 2028 on big money. I think it was around $900,000 or so, which was reported. But at the end of the day, there needs to be serious consideration from Tom Trbojevic now to retire. As much as it breaks my heart to say that, it's just every year. I mean, for a few years ago, it wasn't if it wasn't. I always used to say if Tom gets injured. It breaks my heart now, but now I say when he gets injured, which is a huge concern. I can't see Manly winning a comp with Tom Trbojevic at fullback anymore. I just can't. I mean, I haven't seen Manly winning a comp. I thought 2022 they had a chance after making a prelim in 2021, but from 23 onwards, I just haven't seen. I don't think Manly can win a comp with the rosters they've had, the lack of depth they've had in certain positions, the lack of the roster. Just even though Manly are doing well, it's just Tom is, as much as I love him and Jake with that big deal from 2020 to 2026. Jake was on 900 $1 million a year, and Tom was reported 1.1, 1.2. That money now, it's Jake. This is last year of Jake's deal, but it's just the salary cap needs to. We need to get that money back. If Jake wants to play on, he needs to take a huge pay cut, even though he offers a lot still in terms of leadership and enthusiasm. They need to cut back, save that money. And for fuck's sake, Manly, buy some forwards. I know Taniela Paseka's done a great job. Kobe Hetherington's done a great job. But in 2 years, Jake won't be playing lock. Most likely Kobe Hetherington. They need depth in the forwards. I can't believe some people have come out and said, oh, yeah, it's such a shame Caleb Navali got injured because now we don't have much depth in the forwards. We didn't have much depth in the forwards anyway. Like serious depth in terms of winning a competition. Manly as a club need to adapt in terms of the way in which the game has changed. So as good as it's been being a Manly fan the last few weeks, they still have a lot of challenges in front of them in terms of getting to that next division up the ladder. They need to play and defend like they did in this game, but also they need to rebalance their roster. So let's not get fooled in terms of, sure, they've been fantastic, but their roster probably still isn't going to do much in the finals, in my opinion. So they need to improve there. Let's get to the next game. Raiders 26, Storm 22. Fucking hell, I thought Storm were going to win this. I put my hand up. I was terribly wrong. I even said on the tips and round 7 tips and predictions that I thought Storm were going to win this and possibly win it well. I actually said, I went as far as to say I'm really confident in Melbourne winning. How wrong was I? The turning point of this game was when Cameron Munster comes up 10 metres away. He passes that ball and Simi Sasungi runs fucking 85 metres, gets taken, and then they end up scoring. I think it was KO Weeks at the other end of the field. If that ball doesn't get intercepted, and if Melbourne score that try, I think it would have been Cooper Clark who would have caught the pass, then the Melbourne Storm win that game. It came down to that moment, and the way in which Simi Sasungi, when he was named at centre in round 1, I automatically assumed and thought to myself, look, he'll probably be there for a week or two. And then, they'll just ease Matthew Tomoko back into the centres. I think Matthew Tomoko, his future at the club now is not looking bright. Simi Sasungi, for me, this is just my opinion. You've got your Stephen Crichtons, your Herbie Farnworths and whatnot, but he would be in the top 3 centres of the NRL this year that we've seen so far. And I'm not just talking about brilliance in attack. I'm talking about defensively. People can't get past him. Very rarely do I see another player get past him. He has been fantastic in defence. And Matt Tomoko is such a great player, a talented player. But he has had defensive flaws in his career over the last 4 years since he debuted. And Simi Sasungi, for me, is just such a presence in that side. And I look at him in the way he plays, and he reminds me now, I didn't start watching NRL since around 2002, but I see replays of Ruben Wiki playing for Canberra on that in the centres. We're talking back in 1993, 1994. And he reminds me of Ruben Wiki, not, just in terms of the way he moves. There's a real presence in Simi Sasungi starting for the Canberra Raiders in that number 3 jersey. And I think that's his jersey long term. I really do. I think good on him. The Raiders won, and congratulations to them. Hudson Young, unfortunate, he'll be suspended now for a couple of weeks. And Josh Papali'i has done a calf. He expected to be out for a few weeks now for the Canberra Raiders. So they're 2 big losses against the Tigers on Thursday night, which will be a brilliant game at Leichhardt Oval. Sold out at Leichhardt, but congratulations to Canberra. They proved me wrong massively. I thought this was the game that Storm will come back and win. They haven't lost 5 in a row, I think, since 2012. They ended up winning the comp that year, but Storm will make the 8. I still, last week I sat here and think Storm can still win the comp, and now I'm a bit, I really want to backtrack on that opinion as soon as I can. No, but if I make an opinion, I stick by it. And I still think they can win the comp. I know that sounds ridiculous right now, right? But I think they'll beat Souths this week. I reckon they can climb up. I mean, their draw over the next 4 weeks is reasonably easy. They have a bye coming up at some stage as well within the next few weeks. I reckon they'll climb up the ladder and climb up quickly, to be honest. But who knows? We'll see what happens. But congratulations to, I thought Ethan Sanders did really well. Strange was phenomenal. You knew what he was going to get hit from him. He's such a reliable player. It's not just Strange. We think about Strange and his strength to get through the defence, but his defence is so strong. Not many people can get past Ethan Strange. Congratulations to them. I thought Sebastian Chris was really strong as well. So good on the Canberra Raiders there, getting there. I think that was their 3rd win of the season, a win in round 1 over Manly and Golden Point. And then at South Sydney in Perth last week. And then they got a win then against the Melbourne Storm, winning that 26-22. The next game was a complete mindfuck, just quietly, at 18-0 at half time. Penrith were winning, and I sat back and had my nice glass of wine after I put the kids to bed, and I was sitting there next to my wife going, oh yeah, Panthers are just unbeatable. I know Bulldogs got them the week before, but I thought, oh, yeah, they're just so good. It's so good to watch. And anyway, when the second half started, I went to the bathroom for, 10 minutes, being generous. And I sat there, not on the toilet, but like I sat there when I came back, and I just went, what the fuck? And I think it was 18-12. And then within a few more minutes, it was 22-18. I was like for me, I'm watching that going, oh, that's a real concern for Penrith. Like, that's not good. Like, we're talking about this team as the team that's going to win the comp. I'm not fully sold on it. Like, I think they probably will, right? I think it's probably it'll be out of Penrith, Storm, Roosters, Brisbane. I know, but I think Penrith, there's something not right there defensively. They clock off. Now, I've got no doubt that the tackle from Cody Nikorima on Mitch Kenny was an accident. Cody Nikorima is getting 2 weeks for that. It was a total accident. But in saying that, I don't know. I just thought it was poor. Now, Brian To'o, my mate Josh Russo, gave me a message. Now, To'o hasn't been wearing his headgear, and Josh reckons that may be affecting his form. I'm pretty sure that's what he messaged me. He said, just mention that in the podcast. So I've written that down on my notebook. So look, it is what it is. I just think there's something with Penrith where, as good as they are, they're showing signs the last 2 weeks that they're not playing for 80 minutes now, and they can clock off. So maybe they just need to work on that. I think their edge defense has been a bit poor the last couple of weeks. For me, that's probably their only weakness. To be honest, Tom Jenkins again, what a fucking try to get that game into Golden Point, or Cleary still had to. He missed a conversion, but Tom Jenkins, unbelievable what he's done. 8 tries in 7 games or something like that, or is it more than that? Fuck, I'll have to double check, but it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal what Penrith are doing. And look, they're a mentally tough side. If they clock off, they need to get back in the game. They have a way of adapting when things aren't going their way, when momentum is against them. They don't panic. They just play the long game, and they believe in their system. And, you can have the most talented players in your roster, and I'd say they're more talented rosters than Penrith, which sounds ridiculous, right? As many premiership winners as they've got. But I'd argue that the Roosters have a better team on paper than what Penrith do. But it's the system. It's the Penrith system that is just so special to watch. As a Penrith fan or as a rugby league fan, that this system is unbeatable in terms of you will not disrupt the consistency of Penrith. I understand they had a slow start last year, but the consistency came back because of the system, because of what they've built behind the scenes. They have an amazing ability to go from game plan A to game plan B to game plan C. And if those 3 aren't fucking working, they have a D, E, F, G, and the other teams don't. And, Nathan Cleary, I want to give a shout out to Isaac Targo as well, who played his first game. Now, traditionally, he came in as a back rower. I think he played a bit of lock as well. I'm getting the sense now, with the way he's moving and the smaller forwards and whatnot, I think he could end up in the back row within the next 3 or 4 years. I still think he's probably a centre up until then, but I thought he was brilliant. Now, Nathan Cleary got the field goal, but when the kick was charged down by Tom Gilbert, I think it was Tom Gilbert, I've got written down here, who was fucking sensational for the Dolphins. But when that kick was charged down, he saved that Tom Gilbert. It got taken, came back, and then Isaac Targo ran up the field about 35 metres, and it was a great ball from Freddie Lussick. When he came on, I thought Freddie Lussick did a really good job. His service from dummy half is great. He's not one of those elite NRL players at the moment, but Freddie Lussick, his pass, that pass was fantastic to Nathan Cleary. Congratulations to the Panthers. The Dolphins, Look, my worry about the Dolphins going into this season, I didn't have them in my eight, and I hope I'm wrong. I love the Dolphins. I'd like to see them make the eight, but it's just their lack of consistency. They can win one game against Melbourne. Last year, they beat Melbourne by 44 points or whatnot. And then the next week, they can get smashed by 30. They're a bit like the Warriors in the sort of 2015 or 2021. They were just lacked consistency, the Warriors. Defensively, they were quite poor through that period, and the Dolphins have their defense is pretty poor. Their attack is phenomenal when it clicks, but it like you know what you're going to get with Penrith. Even if they lose a game, they're going to show up and do something brilliant. The Dolphins, you don't know what you're going to get. They are a really hard team to tip. They are a pleasure to watch. They are an absolute pleasure to watch. I want to mention Selwyn Cobbo. I think he might be under some pressure to retain his spot when Jack Bostock returns. I don't think he's got a deal for next year, and there could be a good chance that he'll either end up at Perth or the following year at the PNG Chiefs. But Cobbo has an error in him. He has a few errors in him. Once he gets that out of his game, right? Now, and that's why Madge dropped him last year. There were too many errors in his game, and he wasn't getting himself involved in the games as much as he should. Now, we're seeing this a little bit again, creeping back into his game. He needs to fix up those errors. And once he can do that, he can end up being one of the best outside backs in the game. And when I hear the name Selwyn Cobbo, I can't say great player. I say potential, and I really want to see it. Like he's a good player. He's played Queensland. I'm pretty sure he's played for his country. In fact, I think he did in 2022 or 2023. For me, I think that Selwyn Cobbo needs to just work on the little things of the game, and I think it will be a quick fix. It's not one of these players that needs to improve massively. He's got all the talent. I think he's a hard worker. I just think there's just an error in his game. Like Manu Vadavai for the Warriors back all those years ago. Great player, such a presence, so hard to tackle, such a try-scoring machine. But fuck, he had an error in his game. And they just never really improved it. So some players just have those errors in the game. I mean, I had errors in my game all the time. It's one of those things that slowly you can get better at. But I just think it's something, if he wants to get back into that Queensland Origin side or that Australian side, it's something he's going to have to work on, just fix up those errors. All right, I've taken a while to get through these games. I apologise getting my finger in the way there. All right, the first game on Super Saturday was between the Warriors and the Titans. The Warriors winning this game 28 points to 20. And for me, I just watched this game. It was just... I'll talk about the Titans first. Look, the Titans lost that game, and I wasn't getting carried away through the preseason challenge when they looked good. I look at the Gold Coast Titans, and if I have to, I'll be honest, if I can't see them winning a premiership in the next, 6, 7, 8 years. I think it's going to be longer. Back in the early 2000s to mid 2000s, I think it was easier for teams to recruit players. You're talking back then it was 14, 15 teams. 15 teams from 2000 and 1999 onwards, I think. Gold Coast come in 07, but there was a lot more talent around, and I think it was easier for clubs to rebuild back in the early 2000s, 2000 and mid 2000s. It was easier for clubs to rebuild. You look at Manly in 2004. That's when they started to rebuild, put Brett Stewart at fullback, Monahan coming into the side. They buy Ben Kennedy in 05, and they win a comp within 4 or 5 years. I feel like a rebuild now, you're talking close to a decade, and I genuinely believe that. Because I feel like that there's so much talent, it's harder to recruit. You look at these great players, and over the last 2 years, you've got the PNG. The last 12 months, you've got the Chiefs coming in, and then you've got Perth coming in as well. So all the great players like Ethan Strange and Isaiah Katoa and all these players are fucking getting signed down long term. These great players, it's very hard for teams to rebuild now. So for the Gold Coast Titans, I think Josh Haney's walked in and he knows that the game is different. He knows that being a head coach And working in the NRL now is harder than it ever has been. Probably better than it ever has been in terms of the product, the quality, and the entertainment of the game, but harder as a NRL head coach to manage personalities, to manage the new generation, to manage all this. But to rebuild a roster is a whole nother level. And, I know we talk about Fosbor and Dean Young coming in as an interim, but we are talking about these new coaches that, I think they'll do well, but they need to rebuild rosters. And the Gold Coast Titans, I look at that roster and it's a long, long way away from becoming a consistent final side. And, I know the Dragons are the favourites for the spoon, but there are strong concerns with the Gold Coast. One thing I will say is I didn't have overly much expectation on the Gold Coast Titans this year. And I don't think many people did, but you expect a culture shift. You expect something to change behind the scenes. You expect mental toughness in defence, especially their defence, to now creep into their game. And we have seen that this year. I mean, look what they did to Parramatta last week. That was what Josh Hannay is trying to build in this side. And he knows that. I've got no doubt that he would have walked in and he would have said to probably the owners, Rebecca Frizzell, the Frizzells and Gordy and Maddie, he would have sat there and gone, it's going to take a long fucking time to rebuild this roster. But once we do, then that's when the consistency will come. That he would have walked in, and I think if I'm head coach of the Titans and I walk in, I'm saying to the owners, this is going to take 2 or 3 years to just get to the base level of what we need to be at. And then from 2028, 2029 onwards, that's when we start focusing on building. The rebuild is more trying to get your players and the system, everything ready. And it's just such the point of what I'm saying is a rebuild is so much bigger than what it was in rugby league. I might be wrong. It's just my opinion, but what it was back 20, 30 years ago, it is so much harder now to do, especially with, fucking 2 years time, we'll have 19 teams in the NRL. So in terms of recruiting talent, whatnot, managing players, managing clubs, boards, everything, I think it's harder now than it was. Look back in the mid-2000s, life was simpler. Was the world a better place? Probably, in my opinion. Like, the mid-2000s, it's nostalgic. It was a great time. It's a good time now, but it's just not that same feeling. But, it was a fucking, just the world was a simpler place. And things got done simpler, I believe, in rugby league as well, behind the scenes. But now there's just drama everywhere in rugby league, which I love. It's, it gives me something to talk about on the podcast, but it's just the Titans for me, fuck me. Like, they made one prelim in 2010. Since then, it has been an absolute shit show. It really has been. And Josh Hannay is doing a good job. He's bringing in this culture in terms of, but if you're a Titans fan, you're going to, realistically, I'm sorry, this is just my opinion, you're 3 to 5 years away from being a consistent finals football team. You're more than that from winning a comp. Realistically, you are. Hannay has a lot of work to do, and I believe he'll be the long-term head coach of the Titans. And I believe when the Titans officially win their first comp, I genuinely believe he's a good chance of being the coach to do it. I'm not saying he's the wrong bloke, but I think this is going to be a long, long, long fucking time you look at their stadium, a lot of the time I don't see many supporters. It's quite empty, right? So bring those fans back, bring the fucking community into it. And that's what he's doing. He's doing a good job of it too. But, it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a long time for the Titans to become a consistent, successful club. When I look at the Warriors, they just played this through the middle. I want to give a great shout out to Tanner Boyd. For me, I've always rated him as a player, but I didn't know he was this good. When he played at the Gold Coast Titans for all those years, and when he did play in the 7 jersey, he had a really good short kicking game. I remember that, and his goal kicking was brilliant. He grew up playing with David Fafita. And he was, the next big thing coming through. I remember looking at the Daily Telegraph about 10 years ago, and Tana Boyd was in it talking about the next Currumbin High. Is that the high school they come through? I might be wrong, but, he was the next big halfback coming through. What he has done at the Warriors, he's just playing fucking relaxed football. He's in his mid-20s now. He's having the time of his life, and he's backing himself. He's backing what he sees. He's backing his abilities. I think he's gone into the Warriors going, well, what have I got to lose? Like, fuck it. I'm just going to be myself and play football. And he's been coached really well. I think his timing, his decision-making, his patience, and playing the long game as a 7 that hasn't had overly much consistent first-grade football in his career. I think he's been coached really well by Andrew Webster and the coaching staff there at the New Zealand Warriors. Congratulations to the Warriors. They just rolled them down the middle of the field. Mitch Barnett did well when he came back. Fisher Harris was unbelievable. Congratulations to them. I thought Shan's nickel clockstat was great. And Chanel Harris Tavita, really good. I mean, like Metcalf, for me, you bring him back in the side as soon as he can when he's right and ready to go. But for me, it was unbelievable what they did. Like seriously fantastic. So congratulations to them. They absolutely dominated. I thought Dallin Watene-Zelezniak, he's been in fine form to start the year, hasn't he? It's been fantastic. We just have a fucking car accident down the road. Did you hear that? Fuck. Anywho, all right. Jeez, fuck. Hope they're all right. Someone's crashed into something. Hopefully it wasn't that Dragons truck again. All right. Souths and Dragons, 30-12. I'm not going to harp on the Dragons too much. I think the fans have heard enough. I just feel sorry for the supporters. I admire the Dragons as a club and what they did in 2010 and all that. Even, when they first merged in 1999, they ended up making a grand final and they were up at halftime. I think it was 14-0. Ended up losing to that penalty try, which in my opinion was a penalty try. It was controversial, but it was the right decision. But for me, they will be back, but just like the Gold Coast Titans, it's going to take a long fucking time. Long time to rebuild this club. I won't harp on too much about them because at the end of the day, like I've said my piece on it, I think there's a lack of understanding between the two halves. Sloan goes fucking missing, doesn't he, in defence? Like, geez. I just think, Valentine Holmes was poor. Like, really poor. Probably the worst performance I've seen him play. I was watching him go, is that Valentine Holmes? Because I thought he'd be a certainty for Origin this year. I'm just going, no. I think he's really sort of, for the first time, I'm thinking he looks a bit old. The way he's playing, he doesn't look interested. He's looking like possibly the game has gone past him. Now, I hope I'm proven wrong, but in saying that, he just didn't look interested. He didn't look like a player that was playing for a coach that he won a premiership with 10 years ago, which was really disappointing. I'm going to leave the Dragons alone because I feel sorry for their fans. They've had, it's been a shit show for them. 7 in a row. That's tough. South Sydney, Latrell Mitchell, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. They should have put him in the centres years ago, in my opinion. Like, I remember saying 3-4 years ago, put him in the centres. Like, he's a centre. He can play fullback, but he is a centre. He's a centre. And I'm so glad that Wayne Bennett made the decision. It could have been easy to just go, oh, okay, right, Jai Gray's out for a bit. We'll put Latrell back to fullback. Good on Bennett to go, no, I'm going to recruit Matt Duffy, who reminds me and plays a little bit like Jai Gray, who gets himself involved, is an energy bunny out the back, and you keep Latrell on that edge. And congratulations to Wayne Bennett for that. That's just brilliant coaching, because a lot of coaches, I reckon, would do the easy decision and go, oh, we'll play it safe and just go, yeah, all right, well, Campbell Graham could probably go into the centres, Tyrone Munro on the wing, a few shifts, and then Latrell back to fullback. Good on Wayne for going, no, the fullback days are past him. And I think that's what Manly have to do as well. I think Kieran Foran has to go, no, sorry, Tom, it's centre or you don't play. We're looking at the game now like these smaller Reece Walsh, Suafalago. The fullbacks are just a little bit fitter and more lighter. Jai Gray, Matt Duffy's a little bit like that now as well. He's never been a big guy, but Congratulations to South. I thought they were fantastic. Um, I thought Peter Mamazoulis, I've given him a rap to start the year. I thought he was a bit disappointing in this game. I think he gave away about 5 penalties, which was really poor to see. I've written down here. I was writing it down as I was watching the game. Fuck, it's another penalty from Mamazoulis. So I'm sure he'll work on that. Yeah, like for me, Jamie Humphreys, I'm watching him going, like, kicking game great, defensively strong. I just get the sense that Wayne Bennett isn't decided yet on who he wants the long-term seven to be at this club. And all reports were Jonah Glover was going to start the season at seven. Then he broke his jaw, I think it was, in the Charity Shield back in mid-February. And then he's gone back to Jamie Humphreys to be the seven. For me, I don't know if Bennett's sold on him. I don't know. Jamie Humphreys started the 2025 season brilliantly in the opening month of the season, and we just haven't seen that consistent form. He's not offering heaps in attack, I've got to say. Like, he's a great structured seven, that kicking game, brilliant, defensively great. I think he's probably more of a dummy half, just personally, or a good 14 that can come on like a Tyrone Wishart, play in the halves or play a dummy half. South Sydney, congratulations to them. They have been brilliant. Honestly, they've been brilliant to start the year. I know they had a loss last week against Canberra, but what Souths are doing now is they're playing consistent football, which they lacked last year. I get it. They had the worst injury toll the NRL has probably ever seen from 1998 onwards. But in saying that, what they are showing now is fucking class. I love that. I didn't think this game was a certainty for Souths. I was tipping Souths, but I thought Dragons had a chance. Like, very rarely do you see a team lose more than 6, 7, 8 games in a row. I think the last time was Tigers in 2023. They lost 7 in a row. And then in round 8, I think they actually beat the Premiers, Penrith, at Bathurst, I'm pretty sure it was. So I think really South Sydney are showing consistency. Keon Kalamatangi, all these kind of players are just playing they're playing for their coach, and they're playing for the club, and they're playing with a good South Sydney DNA. And what's really impressive for me over the last few years, when you watch Souths play, they go, okay, we're going to score points and we're going to defend, but we're going to try and score more than you, and that's how we'll win it. Well, no, their defense has been really solid for a lot of games so far in the opening 7 weeks. Congratulations to Souths and their supporters. The following game on Super Saturday, this was the third game between the West Tigers and the Brisbane Broncos. Look, I've seen some Tigers fans on social media criticising and wanting change in the halves. My opinion is, do not change the halves. Adam Dewey just straightens up their attack as halfback, as that first receiver. Jerome Luai he was a bit quiet, but let's be patient, Tigers fans. He just came back from a knee injury for 4 weeks. He started the season well. I think Jerome Luai needs to start learning how to kick field goals if he's on that kind of money. $1 million, I think, 1.1 million. He needs to learn how to kick field goals. When I look at the Tigers, the only option for a field goal kicker is Adam Dewey. I think it's better for them if they have at least 2 or 3 options. Or you got Jock Madden, but he's probably on the bench. So whether or not he's on a Golden Point, who knows? But I think keep Madden there as 14, because he can cover hooker too if Appy gets injured or whatnot. I just think Dewey's been fantastic. I think this is the best the Tigers have looked at, in terms of the halves since early 2018, when Luke Brooks became halfback of the year, playing alongside Benji when he came back to the club. Luke Brooks had a phenomenal year that year, but we haven't seen a Tigers player in the number 7 jersey play as consistent as Luke Brooks did since back then. So it's been a long time since we've seen a number 7 play consistently in that Tigers outfit. Keep him there. My opinion is keep Adam Dewey there in that 7 for as many games as he can. Like, he's a bit like Turbo and Latrell and Kalen Ponga, where he does get injuries a lot. He's injury prone, but keep him there for as long as you can keep him there. And if he does get injured or something happens, then bring in Jock Madden. But I think Madden too, he can come on and play as a ball playing lock as well. The game has changed. The game has evolved. It's more speed, free flowing football, go up the middle, these little forwards, these creative halves playing in the middle as well. Put him in there. Put Jock Madden, it sounds crazy. I wouldn't do it if I was head coach of the Tigers. But if Jock Madden started at 13, you wouldn't do it right. But defensively, he'd do a fucking great job. And, I just think if he came on last 25 minutes of the game, played as a ball playing lock, take Alex Twell off, then I think, you could do something there. But Tigers fans, don't be too upset. I think even though they lost this game, I think they played really well, in my opinion. I thought, if the Tigers lost a game last year or the year before, whatnot, they lose it badly. But I thought they showed some defensive resilience. Thought they made some errors. Young Makasini, for me personally, I think he's more of a centre than a winger. That's just my opinion. I might be totally wrong. He may end up being a fullback. He may end up going to rugby union and becoming one of the best union players that game has ever seen. Like, he's got so much talent. But let's remember too, Tigers fans, he's only 19 years old. He's only played a few games of first grade footy. So he will, like, you look at the players, like, so many players. I remember Jamie Lyon when he first started in 2000. His first few games weren't great. I remember watching Jamie Lyon for Parramatta in his early days. He was brilliant in 2001, but his first few games he struggled at times. You've got some great players. Justin Hodges in Origin. He winger, centre. Traditionally known as a centre, but he struggled a bit in Origin. You got some players when they were young that have made errors. But he'll learn. It's just a learning curve. It's a learning period for Makasini. As much talent as he's got, he's still learning how to play the game of NRL in terms of the high speed, the intensity. The NRL is completely different to reserve grade. Even watching a reserve grade game, you notice the speed, the difference, the lack of fitness that some players have compared to what most players have in the NRL. It's totally different game watching reserve grade to first grade. Makasini, he'll be back in the side without a doubt within the next couple of weeks. I see he's dropped for this game against the Raiders on Thursday night, but I've got no doubt that he will come back and do a brilliant job. Just a learning curve for him. That kicking masterclass from Adam Reynolds, it was really good. I will say, and he just didn't look 100% Adam Reynolds. As good as he played, there's like a limp or something. He's just not, he just looks like he's at the real back end. Like, I understand he's retiring at the end of this year, but I feel that one bad injury and that's it. So, he if he was gone for 12 to 18 weeks or something, it wouldn't just be getting through the rehab. It would be, can I come back and play at 100% when the Broncos need me to? I think if he had a bad injury, I think there would be serious consideration for immediate medical retirement, because I think it would be one of those, he just doesn't look 100% fit. And that's how good he was in this game. Like, he looked like he had a bit of a niggle. Just my opinion watching the game, he looked a little bit like he was limping a little bit or something. But for what he did in this game, with, in my opinion, him still looking a bit sore and sorry, it was brilliant. He played in here, not on the football field, and it was such a masterclass to watch. It was just experience up against inexperience. It was a master. I mean, we talk about the best halfbacks the game has ever seen: Andrew Johns, Jonathan Thurston, Nathan Cleary, Cooper Cronk, Alan Langer. Seriously, I think Adam Reynolds needs to be in that conversation. What he did at South Sydney was brilliant. He broke the streak as the first premiership winning halfback at South since the 70s. Yeah, man, I tell you what. And then even, like, Broncos got the wooden spoon in 2021. 2020, I think it was. Kevy goes there 2021. They don't make the finals. He then signed Albert Kelly, I think, started 2021 as the halfback for Brisbane. And then, Ezra Mam and Billy Walters played in the halves a little bit that year as well. Adam Reynolds plays in that grand final 2021 South Panthers. He was brilliant all year. Comes to the Broncos, who realistically is as big as they are as a club. Going to the Brisbane Broncos at the back end of 2021 probably wouldn't have been an attractive club to go to with how much they were struggling. Like, they were really, like, I commend Brisbane for what they've managed to achieve in a small period of time. Sure, they've got the resources, the facilities, they've got more money and more fans than a lot of other clubs do, but you still got to give credit to where it's due. They have managed to, sure, like they got the wooden spoon, but for me, they weren't like behind the scenes were they as fucked as other wooden spoon sides, like say the Tigers from 2022 to 2024. Like they weren't sort of that level of wooden spoon. I remember the Knights in 2015, 2016. They were one of the worst teams I'd ever seen. The Broncos weren't that. They weren't like they were bad, like, but they weren't in a huge hole. And they were a club that have been overly consistent throughout their history. Um, but yeah, I just think what Reynolds has done has been underrated in terms of his career. I mean, people rate him, of course, but he needs to be talked about as one of the best halfbacks, at least in the NRL era. He wouldn't be in my top three, but I'll tell you what, he'd be in my top 6 or 7 halfbacks, without a doubt. It's not just his kicking game, it's just the way in which he can just nail moments under pressure. He failed to do that in that 2021 grand final, but we look back at 2025 prelim, he got the conversion under pressure. I just think he's a very underrated halfback, Adam Reynolds, and that game watching him play, he reminded me of Cooper Cronk in the 2018 grand final against Melbourne, where Cronk played the grand final in here, but physically he wasn't really there. And, I just feel like Reynolds now is just playing with smarts more than his physical body, if that makes sense. And I think it's that sort of shit is just you can't coach it. It's so impressive and so important to have at a club. Congratulations to Brisbane. I thought Payne Haas, really disappointing to see him go out. He's traditionally been known to come back from injuries a lot quicker than first thought. So hopefully he's back for game 1 for Origin, but they're talking 6 to 8 weeks, so I don't think so. But he'll be back for game 2 without a doubt. I thought Xavier Willison was good in this game. Ezra Mam, was good. Jesse Arthur's, he had a tough night, didn't he? He had a real tough night, but I thought he played pretty well. Like, he was there. He got banged up and whatnot, but he kept turning up. Josiah Karapani, he's been a revelation at Brisbane since he replaced Selwyn Cobbo midway through last year. Just the way he involves himself and understands the game. He gets in there and gives his forwards a break. If I was a Patrick Carrigan or a Payne Haas or Corey Jensen, I would love Karapani in terms of how much he is willing to give us a breather. He gets himself involved, and if he makes an error, he puts his hand up. He's defensively strong. If he makes an error, he always does something brilliant 5 minutes later. I rate Karapani as one of the best and most underrated wingers of the competition, and I understand he's a premiership winger for Brisbane. But I don't think he gets spoken about enough, really. That's just my opinion. Congratulations to Brisbane. Cameron Bukowski, congratulations to him who made his NRL debut. I've spoken about this kid on the podcast over the last 7 months. He's only 19 years old. There's been big raps on him. I thought he did a pretty good job when he came on. Didn't do anything brilliant, but he managed the nerves. He came on at a really hard time of the game to come on and make your debut under pressure. The game was close and whatnot. One thing I'll just talk about at the end of this game, Adam Reynolds made a decision with 10 minutes to go, 9 minutes to go, I think it was, to slot a field goal. Why don't we see this more? I've written down here on my notebook, why don't we see this more? Now, I used to see it more from about 2010 to 2020. I can remember Jamie Sauer doing it a bit for the Dragons in regular season games, where anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes to go, he'd slot a field goal. I think there was actually one game, I think it may have been in 2011, where he kicked a field goal with about 17 minutes to go. Why don't halves do this more? And I loved Adam Reynolds in the press conference. He goes, well, we weren't up at that end of the field for that long in the second half. We were very rarely up there. So when they got their opportunity, I wanted to take it, because who knows when we would get back down there as well. It's such smart thinking. And halves, I can't believe the amount of times where the scores are level with 10 minutes to go, while 5'8" halfback, fullback, or whoever can field goal kick in the side doesn't slot a field goal. Why don't they do it from that far out? Like in terms of minutes, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes to go. Just kick one. Like, fuck. Because it takes pressure off, and then you get the ball back, and sure, they can go for a short kickoff, but you train all fucking preseason to defend those short kickoffs and get the ball back. Like, I think we need to see more of it. And it was brilliant to see finally a game decided fucking 9 minutes out and they backed their defence to win the game. And it was brilliant rugby league to see. They didn't rely on it to go into Golden Point and win it through that way. They won this game, Brisbane, based on their defence. And I think it was a brilliant game between these two clubs. A few errors, but it was a great game to watch. Now, let's get to Sunday afternoon football. The Roosters and the Knights. Good start from Newcastle. Good first half there by the Newcastle Knights. Fucking hell. Something about their attack, man. They just look completely different, don't they? Like this is without Bradman Best the last couple of weeks. They know how to score points in season 2026, the Knights. I felt like they really did miss the likes of Dylan Lucas and Tyson Frizzell in this game, especially in that final quarter of the game, in the final 20 minutes. They just missed that experience of Frizzell and that leadership when things got a bit tough and ugly for them. And I think they just missed the natural talent and hard work, that work ethic from Dylan Lucas. I thought it was a brilliant win by the Roosters, considering that last week they were down by 16 points against Cronulla, and they found another way, they found another gear to go to the next level, and that's exactly what they did. For me personally, Newcastle I don't think will make the 8, but with Holbrook at coach, I could see him being the longest serving coach in Newcastle history. And that's, I think Adam O'Brien is of 5 years, but I think he's been absolutely brilliant, to the point where I think he will be there long term, and no doubt I reckon he could turn them back into a consistent finals football team. The Roosters, congratulations to them. They don't panic, do they, when shit hits the fan? They believe in their system. They believe that they can score points. I thought Mark Nwangani-Tawase was good in this game. A couple of errors here and there, but overall his skill is just unbelievable. Hugo Savala has been an absolute revelation in that centre position. I'd go as far as to say they should probably consider leaving him there when Billy Smith is free to return. I just think he's a big body, defensively strong. I think he's been absolutely unbelievable there. They probably are better off, now that I think about it, with Billy Smith in the centres, and then you put Savala back on the bench to cover lock, second row, halves, centre, even fullback if Teddy gets injured. He's just a fantastic utility player. I thought Cherry Evans was really good in this game. That double pump and that pass to Mark Nwangani-Tawase with about 10 minutes to go was brilliant. I thought Cherry Evans, this was really good. Sam Walker was good. I feel like they're sort of spoke in the preseason about, when I previewed the Sydney Roosters on that episode, I talked about I think it might take about 10 weeks for them to start to combine properly. I feel like we see Sam Walker do some brilliant things and Cherry Evans do some brilliant things, but I'm not really seeing them connect. I might be totally wrong there. That's just my opinion. But when I watch them, I just struggle to see them really connect. I feel like you've got a first receiver and a second receiver that aren't really linking up much and doing their own thing a little bit. What scares me about this is when this halves combination does click and does connect, imagine what they can do then. And they're winning games like how they are at the moment. The only thing with Roosters is, fuck me, they have enough talent to not allow their defence to be so poor. They are not resilient in defence. Their discipline is really poor. And if the Roosters are going to win this competition, they are so far away from winning the premiership, it's not funny. Like they cannot win the premiership with the way they're playing. It's good that they're down by 12, 14, 16 points and they can come back. It's good that they're one of those teams, one of those rare teams of the competitions that they can adapt and come back. But at the end of the day, I thought with the talent they've got in that roster, they need to be better. I thought Reece Robson, that was his best game at dummy half. I thought he was really good. Tedesco does his thing. Daniel Tupou was really good. I just thought the Roosters, overall, they were pretty good to come back and win that when things were looking pretty grim in the first half at certain stages through that football game. Just on Newcastle too, Fletcher Sharp, I really think that he should have just, I think he just needs to be left at 5'8", to be honest. I know he's a fullback and that's probably his main position. I get it. And I get the thinking there. Sandon Smith's been in great form as well. Dylan Brown coming back into the side, but I do genuinely believe that Fletcher Sharp, just keep him there in that. If you start the season and you come out saying you want Fletcher Sharp at 6 and Dylan Brown at 7. They just keep them there and let them combine and have the time together that they need. They've only played a couple of games together in the halves together, so let them connect organically, naturally, and I think that will benefit Newcastle down the track. The final game of the round was between the Parramatta Eels and the Canterbury Bulldogs. Fuck me dead. This was just so unexpected, and congratulations to Parramatta. Man, I wonder how Parramatta fans are feeling right now. Like, that was brilliant. Was that the biggest upset of the year? Or was it the Bulldogs beating Penrith the week before, but then lose to a reserve grade Parramatta with respect? Maybe that's too harsh, but I mean, fuck, the amount of injuries they've got and they delivered this performance, you have to be proud if you're a Parramatta fan. It was brilliant. Ronald Volkman was unbelievable. And, well, I want to talk about Will Penasini. As a Manly fan, I'd love Manly to sign a player like him. He got himself really involved. He was brilliant in this game. He was fantastic for Parramatta. Moses was great. His kicking game was outstanding. The Bulldogs just did not show up. Josh Curran and the centres, there is no explanation with that. I think you had Jonathan Sewer. I'm pretty sure when I did the team list last week, you had Jonathan Sewer on the reserves. Why don't you move him onto the wing or put Sullivan on the reserves and put Sullivan at halfback, move Burton to the centre? Then it's fixed. I couldn't understand that. I'm wondering if Serrato, as good as he is as a coach, I'm wondering if he overthinks sometimes. Keep it simple. Keep it. Rugby league at the end of the day is a simple game if you allow it to be. And I think the Bulldogs, if they're going to succeed in the immediate future in terms of winning premierships and whatnot, they need to understand the game of rugby league. As much as it's developed over the years, as much as it's the speed of the ruck and the game has evolved and the game has changed, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, especially when in 2019, when the 6 again rules came in, 2020, I think it was, when the 6 again rules came in, the game totally changed, and it's evolved so much since 2020. It's gotten faster. There's less wrestle. It's like watching touch football out there. They're playing that fast. It's just such a great spectacle. But the Bulldogs need to keep shit simple. Even though the game has evolved, doesn't mean that rugby league isn't a simple game. You just evolve with the game and keep things simple. I think the Bulldogs need to keep things simple. Let's only think about it. Wasn't that long ago where Trent Barrett got sacked back in 2022. 2023, they had a horrid year in Serrato's first year. So they've only made the finals 2 years in a row. They are now in the early stages of their rebuild still, right? I just spoke in the podcast earlier about how long it takes these days in the new game of rugby league compared to the mid-2000s, early 2000s of a club rebuilding. I genuinely believe the Canterbury Bulldogs, they're still rebuilding, right? They really are. They need to keep shit simple. Keep it simple. And what I mean by that is fucking put Burton in the centres now. Mitch Woods, when he's right, put him in there. Galvin is a 6. He's not a 7. Put Galvin 6, Woods 7. Keep Sullivan on the bench. Bailey Haywood, you've decided he's the long-term hooker. That's fine. But there's just too much uncertainty. And I think Burton would either prefer to be... he knows that he's either going to end up in the centres or to another club. That's the way it's shaping up, right? And that's the way, I've got no doubt when I do this podcast in a few years from now, if I've still got listeners, I'll be saying 6 Galvin, 7 Woods as one of the best young halves combinations of the competition. And it'll be a lot like Foz and Cherry Evans back in 2011, 2012, 2013 period. All right, the Bulldogs really disappointing. They need to turn up. And what I mean by that is they can't just be great one week and shit the next. That's not the Bulldogs' way. The Bulldogs are better than that as a club. I respect the club and their culture and the way they do shit. The Dogs of War, growing up, watching that 2004 grand final, they were outsiders to win that game. The Roosters were heavy favourites to win that game, but the Dogs got it done because that's what the Dogs did. That's what they do. Now, we've seen that Bulldogs DNA creep back in the last couple of years. They need, and I guarantee you, they need to keep shit simple. They need to keep shit simple. Make tough decisions now. Do not wait 12 months, 18 months to bring Woods in and all that. Make the tough decisions now because it will benefit the side in 2 or 3 years' time. Burton, I think, will leave the club. That's my opinion. I think he'll go to Perth or PNG or wherever. He'll go somewhere else down the track. Or I just think he won't want to play in the centres, even though he won a comp there in 2021. I genuinely believe he'll be wanting to play at 5'8". as his game has evolved over the years. They need to turn up. Leo Thompson back in the side, which is good for them moving forward, but against Brisbane at Suncorp now. They don't need to win, but play with that Bulldogs DNA and that Bulldogs mentality, because what they're doing is they're showing what they did in 2023, where they had a good week, then a couple of bad weeks, and then a good week and whatnot. They've gone through enough hard work, and they've shown the NRL and the rugby league community that they are too good to be fucked with. They're too good to not be taken seriously, and they've earned the right for their fans, and the club has earned the right to be taken seriously. But when they do shit like this, it's just 2 steps forward, 1 step back. They need to keep shit simple so that they just keep going forward until they win that premiership, in their first premiership since 2004. Congratulations to Parra, as I touched on. Joash Papali'i, who actually was at Canterbury. I remember watching him in a preseason challenge game. I think it was in 2024 against Melbourne. Yeah, that was absolutely unbelievable. He was playing fullback that day. I think Blake Wilson was playing on the wing as well for Canterbury. Those two absolutely carved it up. He's such a talent. Ronald Volkman, how good's that story for him? It was only a couple of years ago where he left the Warriors, went to the Dragons, but then the Dragons blamed it on the Warriors that he had an injury and a medical test that he didn't pass. It was a whole shit show, and he got injured, a shoulder injury, I think it was. He sat out the whole season. He could have easily just given up the game then and gone, no club wants me, this and that. He fought back, he came back, and he did what he did on the weekend. For me, he's not an NRL first grader at the moment in terms of a consistent one that we will see, but I reckon he's definitely got the mentality of a tough NRL consistent player that within a year or two, we could actually see him become a consistent half in the NRL. I just think he's one of the most mentally tough NRL players, rugby league players I've seen. I really believe that. I just think for what he's gone through, the media, everything, how he's been treated, unfairly treated, in my opinion, by the Dragons. I think, good on him. Fucking good on him for just saying, nah, I'm not gonna let that stop me. Fantastic to see. All right, that's it. That is the Rugby League Forecast Podcast Round 7 review. We've done an hour and 7 minutes today. It was a great round of football, wasn't it? It was absolutely fantastic. If you agree or disagree, please leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe on the YouTube channel or follow me on the Apple Podcast or Spotify. And if you don't like what you're hearing, if you don't like this podcast, then that's okay. You just don't need to click on it again. But I hope you enjoy it. I hope you love what you're listening. I analyse the game, but I don't want to go on 4, 5, 6 hour reviews. And nothing against other podcasts that do that, but I like to try and just sort of, speed it up a little bit and talk about things from a different perspective, from a rugby league fan, like so many of you that have followed the game for many, many, many years. And, sure, I never played the game. I played the game, but in junior rugby league and in A grade level, but I never played NRL. But I genuinely believe that a passionate rugby league fan like myself, and anybody out there who loves the greatest game of war deserves to have an opinion. And it's okay to not agree all the time. I just think it's great for everyone to have an opinion and a voice on the greatest game of war. So please leave your opinions in the comments. Thanks so much, guys, for listening. And I'll be doing the team lists tomorrow. And the next edition will be the round 8 tips and predictions. All right. Thanks, guys. Cheers.